Welcome to the Authentic Action Podcast, brought to you by Gal Media, FunFast Productions, and the Authentic Action School online. I'm your host, Angel Lilly, and I'm here to explore diverse perspectives on living a good life. I hope to inspire, educate, and motivate you to take more positive action in your own life and help inspire you to design and live a unique life that you love. In this podcast, I will be interviewing and conversing with outstanding artists, musicians, authors, activists, poets, performers, visionaries, builders, leaders, healers, and seekers who are deliberately designing lives that they love. Together, we can expand our personal and collective awareness and compassion by sharing our stories, dreams, and perspectives, and learning about so many things we have in common, and more about those things which make us unique. My guest on today's episode of the Authentic Action Podcast is an exceptional speaker and natural healer. She is remarkable in numerous ways. She has lived, up until recently, identified as a man, and currently refers to herself as a woman with a penis. She was also the first person to formally register as gender X in the state of New Mexico, as that just recently became a legal option. She's currently starting on a renewed path as a healer and an artist. I encourage you to check out her mystical items and services. We hit it off before we even met in person, and it is my pleasure to introduce my friend, Kelly Sophia Grace. Welcome to the Authentic Action Podcast, and thank you for joining me, Kelly. We've been talking about talking for a while, so I'm excited that we're finally getting to.
I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. Well, as I was just sort of explaining, this is just a platform for you to tell a little about your story, share how you're designing your own life, what's working, what's not working. If you want to talk about struggles, you can, or if you just want to talk about dreams for the future, that's great too. So,
this is one of those topics where we could be here all night.
Correct.
So I'm going to try to cut to the parts that I think might be particularly useful.
Sure.
And one of the blessings and curses that I had is I was always been somewhat good at everything and interested in everything. So where a lot of people became successful by having sort of a laser focus. I'm going to be a banker. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I need this degree to accomplish this goal. I spent 6 years getting my bachelor's because I ended up doing effectively 3 different majors.
I did too.
And anyway, I had all these different dreams and things I wanted to do. And for the most part, I just wanted to have a joyful life. Unfortunately, I chose long-term female partners that had a different vision than I might have chosen. And a lady I was married to at the time, this is like 30 years ago. Amazing. Because it was 1990. Yeah. I had finished my bachelor's degree, and she's like, "Oh, you'd be such a great lawyer." And probably the only time I've been almost violent with her. It's like, no, I'm not going to go do 3.5 more years of school after I just did 6.
Right.
But she was insistent, and I went and took the LSAT. I passed sufficiently. The reason I got accepted in law school was not because my LSAT was so good, but I did have straight A's from college. So long story short, I got into law school. During the time I went to law school, I worked for a law firm. So I learned more by doing than I did actually from the classroom action. And then as I went through, decades of doing various, I did lawyering for about 15 years. I did mediation for about 15 years. The realization that I've come to as, I'm going to turn 58 this year. So this is my double Saturn return or midlife crisis or whatever you want to call it. But what it comes down to is, and this to me, if you look at the Carl Jung's idea of first half of life versus second half of life, I came to the realization that I had done what I was good at instead of what I came to this planet to do, what was my destiny. Yeah. Now, one of the things I'm working on right now, some shadow work with trying to forgive myself for, lots of wrong turns that I think, man, if I knew then what I know now, I just wouldn't have done it that way. But I have to assume that there's a cumulative effect, that all the things, all the wrong paths lead me to where I am today. Mm-hmm. Now, where I am today is kind of a mess, because usually when you're really, really on the wrong path and you have subjected yourself to the delights, joys, and direction of the universal power, whatever you want to call it, mm-hmm. then you will, at some point, that power will knock you off your horse. And I literally got to the point that I was so incredibly unhappy, thinking, I've been on this wrong path for a long time. I'm good at it. There's parts of it where I get joy, but there's other parts where the stress is killing me. I mean, literally killing me. And I reached a point that I could not I just couldn't do stress anymore. Not at all. And so then I had what they used to call a nervous breakdown, where physically, emotionally, mentally, circumstantially, spiritually, I kind of lost everything. And I really lost everything. I had a stroke, went through a really hard time with my health, where I was absolutely unable to keep the money coming in. When I had the stroke, a lot of my friends came in, and I had a beautiful, you can call it a 3-bedroom house, but what it really was is the Kell Museum. Mm-hmm. I had a huge collection of all kind of, about 80 paintings were hanging in the house. My girl room, I have a distinct feminine side. My girl room, which was the demonstration in the real world of my inner feminine side, I had 400 pairs of high heels. Just the house was packed. And we ended up having to put all that into storage, a huge, huge storage unit that was $300 a month. And in the last 6 months, I'd let that bill get up to like $4,000, and I had to let it go away. Right. And there are times that I think, I want to go hiking. Oh, my shoes are gone. Where it really does make me sad that I've literally lost everything. But as they say in the song, living good is easy, Lord, when you got nothing left to lose. Mm-hmm. And what needed to happen in my life, and I would, I could blame 20 things and 20 people and think of all the external stuff going on. But the bottom line is, I have to believe positively that in my spirit, and working in conjunction with the divine will it is, that I needed to start over. So the bottom line is, I've always had a tremendous interest in art. Art was one of the 3 majors that I did. I had tremendous joyful stories of making art, and I have my entire life. I come from an artistic family. And in particular, I like doing sculpture. The problem is, I now live very small. I live partly in my van, and I have a 12 by 12 little studio building behind somebody's house. It doesn't have a bathroom, or it doesn't have any plumbing at all. So I live small. So the idea of me making I used to do assemblages, mm-hmm. which are small sculptures with a variety of different things tacked on. Yeah. So I had to think of what can I do, and 2 things happened. I had among the many things, I had a spiritual crash, where I've been wrestling with this for 30 years, but the evangelical conservative thing that I grew up with that I never resonated with, I finally shed the dead weight of that. Didn't throw everything out, but a lot. Right. And what has arisen from that is a tremendous love for the earth, the things of the earth, and whatever you want to call it. I just feel a tremendous spiritual connection to the rhythms and the magical workings of the earth. And so I started making magic wands, mm-hmm. Rather elaborate magic wands. I also started making jewelry with stones that I had found, stones that I had purchased. And it's not going to be a living, but it has brought more healing to me than anything I've done in years. So in the area of trying to design a life, I guess in a perfect world, you would realize, oh my God, I'm on the wrong track. I'm on a good track, but it's not my track. And then you would change gears at whatever the cost. I didn't have the courage to do that. But I either subconsciously did it, or it happened to me one way or another. I was kicked off my path.
Right.
And then began again with something that is, I'm actually better at mediation than I am at doing art. I am. Right. I got to where, frankly, I was brilliant. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't my core truth. Mm-hmm. And over the last year, my whole quest has been authenticity. And that has included a variety of kind of wild things from, since I was a little toddler, I've always had a very, very strong feminine identity. Mm-hmm. But I was in a male body, and, this was 1965, so what do you do with that? If I had tried to do what they can do now, which is to change gender mm-hmm. At puberty or whatever, I'd have died, because I would have been in the 1970s, and they just weren't ready for me.
Right.
So in the last year, I have been not hell-bent to go from being male to female, but to just truly experiment with who am I if all possibilities are before me? And what are my best feminine strengths? How can I work within the divine feminine? And at the same time, in my situation, find healing for the divine masculine that is within me. Because, anyway,
I think a lot of us are working on that. I personally have found there's a lot of, in my own exploration to celebrate my femininity, I too ran up against a lot of wounded masculine, and wounded feminine, obviously. But mm-hmm. I've realized that they both need to be healed together in order for the whole thing to.
There's a part of me I would love to go to the Amazon island. That's all women. Mm-hmm. That would suit me just fine. Yeah. I know that there are some marvelous, wonderful spiritual men out there who have integrity and depth. But, I've been historically wounded often by men. Yeah. Even going back to when I was 4 and 5 years old, older gay men would see me, and they know what they perceived as, oh my God, there's a 4-year-old gay boy. Mm-hmm. That's what they perceived me to be when I was actually trans. Right. But this was 1966, 67. And from the time I was a very young person, I had some men do horrible things to me. And so it's left a wound that I'm still, it's one of those things most of us, when we have horrible things, most of us stick in a box and think, I can't deal with that right now, and I'll deal with it another day. That's another part that bubbles up. Mm-hmm. Because here I am, I was sequentially molested at 4 and 5, and you think, okay, Kelly, that's 53 years ago. How is that relevant to today? I literally kept the lid on it for all those years until I crashed, and then all of a sudden, some wounds from long ago said, oh, you're resting. This is a good time for you to deal with this hurt.
While you're healing,
as long as you're down, let's kick you harder.
That box, huh? Yeah.
So anyway, I've had a very challenging last year, mm-hmm. where somebody from the outside looking in said, oh my goodness, Kelly's lost to shit. Can I cuss on your channel?
Oh, of course.
Okay, good. The reality of it is, I have gone through a harsh revolution and evolution moving towards authenticity mm-hmm. and my best life. And I'm not there yet. There's an old saying that you put a big bird in a small cage and they'll sing. And that was kind of my life for many, many years, where I was doing that song that was expected of me, but I was confined by a cage that, bless my baby heart, I mostly built myself.
Yeah.
Again, there were people that hurt me, but fundamentally, if I keep my focus on what hurt me externally, not to mean that, I guess I forgive them, but I'm not allowing them to control my life. What I can do is look at everything that happened to me, and in an act of radical acceptance, and that's huge, it's coming to the point where this is where I am, period. This is the now. If I could go back, if God came down and said, holy shit, I messed up, would you like to change the following things? I would change things.
Would you?
I would, but the bottom line is that is not going to happen.
Right.
So,
I mean, I'm fascinated by how I do think that regret is an interesting thing, and that idea that you would change something, because I mean, what the truth is, we will never, what it would be like if we change things, we can never know, I don't think. But I do think that as I go through life, there's these points where you can, these big points where you look back and go like, oh, every bit of that suffering or that wrong turn, as we might have called it, was exactly what brought me to this perfect place.
Totally get that. Yeah. And that's really where I'm processing at this point. I do have regrets, but they don't serve me.
Right.
They don't.
Yeah.
So my best bet is to this idea of radical acceptance. Where I am is where I am. And what power do I have to change? And what is my target? Where am I headed from here? And that can literally change every day, because what's happening is all these little, the cage is made of wires and wires and wires. So as I decide I'm going to bust out of this cage that made me sing a tune that wasn't my authentic self, I have to take down wire by wire by wire of the things that I built that weren't my authentic self. They were things that I put there. The cage confined me, but it also protected me. Mm-hmm. And the reality of it is, I have to take ownership of that, and I have to look at each different wire from the cage and say, does that serve me? Is that real? Is it true? And if it does not, dismantle it. So here I am, halfway out of the cage, caught on some of the wires.
Yeah. And
I'm going to come out. And not in like, oh my God, drag queen kind of thing. I'm never going to be, other than maybe on Pride Day, I'm not going to be like flamboyant anything. I just want to be me. Yeah. As far as gender stuff, New Mexico this last year allowed for the first time to have on your birth certificate gender X. I became the first person in the state of New Mexico to have the gender designation of X. And a lot of that is an act of rebellion. Mm-hmm. I don't want a doctor at 3:00 in the morning, 58 years ago, deciding who I am and putting me into that box and deciding you're either A or B and there's nothing else. I want to be able to wake up every morning and choose afresh who I am and where on that spectrum I get to be. So I could have, because I feel distinctly feminine in many ways, I could have just chosen to go to M to F. Mm-hmm. But first, I don't like the government telling me who I am.
Right.
Second, I want to define me. And because of all these little cage tines that I have set in place, as each one is removed, as I forgive myself for paths that I chose, for beliefs that maybe served me to protect me, but they no longer serve me, as each one of those fall, my identity has more freedom than it did the day before. Mm-hmm. So this is an evolution. It's not like you go from A to B. It's just not. Right. You can't, we've all developed like these lenses of who we are and how we see the world and who is this. It is our human nature to label things and to box things. Mm-hmm. So when you make an overt gesture to go back and begin to observe the world as you know it without naming it, and it's a mindfulness thing, right? To try to redefine for yourselves what works. Mm-hmm. Then as that process goes through, my finding authenticity changes every day, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's neat that you have that freedom now. I think that question of identity, is always there for all of us. But I think it's a neat time when you can go and put an X on your birth certificate and say, I'm not going to commit right now, and I want the freedom to be able to decide on a day-to-day basis. I do think it's the they pronoun versus he, she is an interesting whole rabbit hole to me. It's not that I have any negative feelings about it. I just find it a little of a bump exactly. Yeah. It's a little new, and I'm not sure how it will play out in the long run.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So I want to talk about art, because
that's fine.
When you mentioned finding your true path, that you feel your true path is making art, and that you feel drawn to sculpture, and now you're making jewelry. And this question has come up for me a lot lately, just on a personal level, which is like, what is the difference between skill and art? Because you talked about having a high skill level in mediation, which in my mind could be artful. And you're talking about feeling like your skill level is not up to that level with your creative, authentic jewelry making right now. So I have this discussion with myself. I don't have any answers to it, but I'm interested to know what your thoughts on what's the difference between skill and art. What makes you feel like you're an artist versus practicing a skill that isn't artful to you?
It's, first of all, I come from a family of artists, so I've always had that as an identity. I'm also quite, I'll say, what's politically, I wanted to say bohemian. I'm not sure that's politically correct term.
I won't hold it against you. It works for me, but I hear you.
But the idea is, I have a wandering interest. I like a lot of different things. And as far as the skill versus art, they work hand in hand, but they're an opening flower, because some people are born in virtually every area with an innate, they come into this world knowing how to heal people. They come into this world knowing how to draw perfect portraits that people are like, holy crap, it looks just like her, and then there are other people who have vision, who have the ability to see the things that are underneath what is on top, that are drawn towards art, but they literally have to go through a skill learning process that gets them to the point where they are so skillful at what they do that they can then do their work literally without thinking. We look at somebody like Picasso, and his, particularly in his later period, it was very jumbled. We knew that was supposed to be a woman, but her head was upside down and her boobs were on the back. So we're used to that. Picasso went through traditional art school, and he did exquisite, realistic paintings, and he developed that skill set. And it was only when he had the skill that he could then say, I will now take this toolkit that I have created, and I will now apply my internal vision, the mind, the ability to see what's underneath.
Right. And, so, in my experience, talking to various artists, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. It's
fine. This topic, I think everybody comes to a point, whatever their art is. Mm-hmm. In fact, those who are like born knowing what they want to do and do it seem to come to it sometimes maybe even harder, where it's like, this isn't making me feel authentically like I'm expressing my true inner being anymore.
Right.
And so then they, like Picasso is a great example of, of leaving behind your traditional skill set, and that, not that you can get rid of it, but you take it somewhere else, right? And I think I just, in talking to artists, that seems to be a common theme, where whether they shift to a different, from mediation to sculpture, or from painting to dance, or whatever shift it is, it still comes out of that desire to feel like there's some discovery, maybe, then I can just finding out who, pulling up who we are, and showing that. I'm not sure. I haven't nailed it down, but
it's one thing that these are fine line issues, but the difference between being technically proficient, there are people who have the ability to do perfect, realistic renderings in art. But the result does not have soul. Right. It doesn't, people can look at it and they're like, that looks just like a photograph. They might as well have taken a photograph, but there is this like transcendent thing where, we see, I think, from what's often called the primitive artists, where even when the art is not great, you take somebody like Grandma Moses, but her passion was there, and you could see her heart come through. You could see it had emotion, it had depth. If you can walk through a museum and look at a piece and you're like, boom, and in 2 seconds you've got it, you move on, I think for the most part that's not a successful painting. If it doesn't draw you in, if it does not touch you in a way that goes beyond just seeing, then I think you missed the mark. So a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, I'm just trying to be wide open. The work I'm doing with the wands, I'm doing 3 levels of wands. The least expensive wands are what I'll call authentic wands, and those are, willow wood with a crystal, a traditional but like legit wand. I mean, that level of wands that I'm doing, they're inexpensive, but I literally go out at full moon and pray a blessing over them. I dip them in moon water, like in a baptism, to cleanse them, because it's very important to me. The wand is to serve the person who is going to use it. So I don't want to put my energy on it. I will squeeze the juice of a pomegranate and take a basting brush and just baste each wand. Now, did I read that in a book somewhere? Nope. It's just in my trying to find the knowing of how to do this. That's what felt good to me. That's what felt authentic to me. The pomegranate has forever been a fruit that was associated with feminine energy for a lot of things. It's probably the fruit that more likely that Eve offered Adam, if that story were to be true. Anyway, so I wanted to give the wands earth wisdom, earth energy that I perceive mostly as feminine. So anyway, I put a lot of intention and true magic, but I leave the wands energetic but blank, so that the person that would acquire it can make it their own. My next level are trying to think of the nice word. I want to say posers, but that's not it. They're for people who are enchanted by magic. These are the people that could just go out and buy the Rider-Waite standard tarot cards, but no, they've got 20 decks of all different elaborate, some of them have gold edges and some, they are enchanted with the things of magic, so that it's, they could, if all they want to do is to draw a circle, to have a little magical moment, they can literally grab a stick off the ground and draw a circle. You don't have to have a fancy wand, but I make fancy wands out of cholla wood, which is kind of unique to the Southwest, and leather and stones and things like that. I then do a third echelon of wands, And these are technically not even for sale yet, because these are what I'm going to call art on a stick. And my vision is, over time, I want to put together 20 or 30 of these wands, and they're going to be like art gallery.
In a glass case, breaking case of absolute emergency.
Well, I mean, somebody could buy them. They're just...
but I mean, they probably sit in a case.
Yeah. And they still are imbued with the magic that that I've talked about. This one is the Wand of Unconditional Love. This is the mid-level that I told you about. Yeah, absolutely. And those are something that someone might have on an altar, and it would bring them joy. And they're rose quartz and amethyst, and then little pretty baubles.
It's very pretty.
So that's my mid-level wand. And then these, this is the Wand of Fabulosity.
Right.
That is just, honestly, I'd probably term something as a scepter. It's more artistic than the rest, but you could almost imagine. Yeah, I could see, a queen raising that, going down the parade on Pride Day.
I love it.
And then another one that I've done. This is the Wand of the Circle of Life.
I saw pictures of this one, but I didn't get to see.
And these are where, on one hand, some of the jewelry I do, some of the middle wands I do, those are creative and pretty and everything. But the higher echelon of wands, I literally perceive as art, and art on a stick, which, I'm doing something that I don't think is like common. I don't know of anybody else doing art on a stick.
I haven't heard of anybody else doing
but
I have seen wands, but not like yours. They are unique.
But anyway, I think the biggest thing when you talk about, well, are these wands really magic? These wands are healing my soul. And in that area, they are absolutely magic.
Yeah.
It pulls me towards what feels like a authenticity. It also, one of the things that's wonderful about art is I'm still having some significant health issues. So if I'm having a day of dark depression, I can sleep 20 hours, get up, and take a shower, eat a meal, and make a wand in 3 hours and go back to bed.
Right.
and I get to design my world to suit who I am right now. Now, I have every intention of getting better and getting healed and being more productive and all that good stuff. I'm never giving up. But I like that I have discovered a way that I can absolutely do what makes me happy on a timetable that works for who I am and where I am right now, and something that will generate a little bit of money. Although the money's, it's secondary. As desperately as I need it, and I do, every month I run 500 short to make the bare bones nut of what I need to survive. So I've got to scrounge up $500 some way, somehow. But being able to create something that connects with people. I've had a couple of friends that said, here's $60. You know me, design something that's me. First of all, that's really intimidating.
Right.
And I will ask them a little bit, like, what color stone are you drawn towards? Yeah. But then it's like this really beautiful thing of spending a couple of days of kind of moving intuitively. A wonderful young lady that I just did a wand for, I had the strongest sense that I needed to add bird feathers to her wand. And it was the first time I'd ever this technically has feathers, but I had a sense this is what I needed to do for her. And she absolutely adored the wand, but the feathers tripped her out because she was incredibly close to her dad. And when he would go off hunting, he would look as he went through the forest, and he would find the most interesting feathers, probably feathers that at that time he wasn't supposed to pick up and bring home. But it was a key connection point to her with that father energy. And that was something I just found, I nailed it. Yeah. And that was really satisfying to think, trying to pull on this one-mindedness that is there if we'll try to go for it.
Yeah.
I was able to find something that was healing and blessed her, which, when you think a lot of jewelry and the wands and things, you're probably thinking, oh, it's pretty. I want to connect on a heart level. I want to create things that heal people. Yeah. And I believe certain stones have the ability to literally heal people innately, but also if they add intention. I think different stones beat at a different frequency, and that whatever your need is, if you pick out a stone that matches the frequency that you need to have in order to transcend in that particular area, that the stone can be part of the success in that thing that you do. So when I talk about what a big curve this is, and I've got so much to learn, I did legal stuff for 30 years. I knew my stuff in and out. I was sharp. I knew how it worked. I knew the top workings. I knew the inner workings. And with the work that I did, particularly in mediation, it was probably more psychological than it was anything legal. Throwing the paperwork together was easy. Right. Helping people to move through the most difficult time in their life, that was the challenge. So I now have to go through with somewhat limited time in the rest of my life where I'm learning all about stones. I'm learning all about different craft processes. I need to learn soldering and things like that. Right. I do have good mentors who are willing to work with me on that, but I have a lot to learn. Yeah. But I have time.
So what I just heard you say, forgive me if I'm
that's fine.
But I just heard you say that I'm just going to grossly paraphrase, that the art skill, the skill that you really refined in years of practicing law and mediation, which was helping people move through the most difficult point in their life. I see glimmers of that. You're carrying that into a whole new skill set, which is brand new to you and challenging, right? But I see having just every time, the few times we've gotten to sit face to face, I can sense that you certainly have that that Jedi quality of the magic quality, whatever. I'm fascinated by the names we give that which we don't fully understand, but how to utilize the vibration of things that maybe you don't fully understand in order to bring people healing or provide a safe space for people to heal themselves.
No, I think you absolutely nailed it. And to that extent, I think all the experience I've had working with, I've done over 2,000 divorces. And as I said before, working with people during the time that they're parting ways, other than people that work with folks who have had a loved one die, I really come into people's life where they're not behaving well. Yeah. They're wounded, they're hurt, they're confused, they're scared. So many of them are scared. And I have, we talked about people coming into this planet have an innate gift. It's just like from age 4 they can draw. It's shocking, or they learn a language like seamlessly, as if some way, somehow they came into this world knowing this language that's hard to learn. I mean, some kids have that, but I have had 2 gifts. One that's innate is an ability to heal and to do what I call becoming peace in the room. That is literally a mantra that I'll do. I'll have couples come in that were wanting to do a divorce, and I would stay completely in control, but I would create a safe space where they would have this pent up energy that they couldn't allow to emerge because they didn't want to offend the kids, or they were scared of that energy. And so I will create a safe space where they can yell "fuck you" at each other for about 15 minutes.
Right.
And during the entire time that they're releasing this negative energy that has bound them up and kept them from being able to move to the next step of the legally and circumstantially parting ways, I'm going through this mantra, let me be peace in the room, let me be peace in the room. And that sort of thing I bring to the wands, even to the jewelry. Yeah. It is important to me that, we all have our thing that we fight. So I've already had people that have said, can you make me a pendant? Here's, I have neuropathy. Can you make me a pendant that will help me with the neuropathy? And I do research to see what stone might be good for that. But I also rely a lot on intuition. And one of the things that's astonishing to me is I will have this thought, I think it needs to be this stone. Mm-hmm. Then I'll look it up, nailed it. And it's not something I've learned. It's this innate ability that I came into this world with to bring the things of the earth to the people that need them in order to help them become healed. Mm-hmm. And that's tremendously important to me. I said there was two things. I'll think of the other one shortly.
Cool.
So, this one's touchy. Due to a lot of things, a lot of it was trauma. Mm-hmm. I came into this world able to be a shapeshifter, a chameleon, to become who I needed to be for another individual in order to bring them to healing, in order to bring them to a new sense of peace. Mm-hmm. I've never misused that because it's a power. It truly is a power. And in mediation, here I am, a person that appears in a male form, but having a very strong feminine identity. And I'm working with a commander of a platoon with the armed services that, when he speaks, people bolt and run, right. Powerful man. But I'm dealing with him at a time where he feels vulnerable, mm-hmm. and it's uncomfortable for him. And of course, at that point, I've had, in order to come into the mediation, I've taken my nail polish off, right. Take my earrings off. But I'm able to talk with him on a level that he thinks, oh, this guy gets me. Mm-hmm. And the positive of that is it's given me extraordinary ability to be a healer. But that's part of what was my downfall, because the time came after a life of literally working through hundreds, even thousands of people, where I touched their lives and became the shape-shifted identity that, in my opinion, they needed for healing at that time. I lost me in the process. So this hard time that I've had over the last couple of years, one of the neat things about it is to just shut down, no longer doing mediation, no longer doing any of the shape-shifting work where I have to become something inauthentic to who I really am to survive. Mm-hmm. And to focus on who am I really, and then set the intention for the rest of my life. I'm going to bring to the world my deepest, most authentic self, like it or not, and trust that the healing power can still work through that. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm going to let the cat in.
That's beautiful. And yeah. Sure, I'm going to pause this and then we'll wrap up with a couple of questions.
Okay, sounds good.
I bet. Yeah. Feathers and cats. All right. Sorry, I thought we were. Are we unpaused? Yes, now we are. Cool.
That'll work.
Yes. If I was a cat, I would have me a lot of feathers. So to wrap this up, because as you said, we could talk about this for hours, and I hope we do continue for some more hours in the future. But for this podcast, I would love to ask you what I'm beginning to call my 3 magic wishes questions.
Okay.
And so if I had a magic wand on me that I gave to right now that would allow you to make 3 unconditional wishes, no conditions whatsoever, but the only conditions are, one of them needs to be for you personally, one of them needs to be for the world at large, and one of them can be for whatever you desire. Like you get to pick. I want it to be for your art, but I will let you pick it for yourself.
For myself, probably the most important thing for me is I would love to be perfectly healthy. There's a lot of damage that I did to myself due to being in an authentic course of life that was that was useful, and I helped people and stuff, but it was wounding my soul every day. And I just, over time, I did damage to my body that even as I really work towards undoing things, there's a lot of things that will just never come back. I would love to have, in a perfect world, I'd love to have a perfect, I'll pick up where Jesus left off. I'd want to be 33.
Yeah.
And in good health, good mental acuity, and the ability to once again live and have more potentiality based on the fact that I feel good to do it. Right. So that I would choose that for myself, and that one's totally selfish, but it allows me to it would allow me to accomplish other things that are really important to me. The second one you said would be something I would do for the world. And this could be like a whole nother podcast. But I think that we could change the world if we could simply put into schools, and my developed idea is that every 8th grader takes 2 semesters of mental health training, which that's a lot of the things that I've talked about today, that teaches mindfulness, that teaches a system of meditation that isn't scary to a variety of religions.
I want to give you an amen, sister, right now.
I want to teach them nonviolent communication so that they can advocate for themselves and walk in their authenticity and know how to do that in the midst of people that don't see their vision. I want people to know how to deal with anxiety, how to deal with depression. There are tools out there that if we just taught kids one by one how to live an emotionally healthy life, it would literally change the world. Everything that we think about in a kumbaya future is held back by anger and misunderstanding and not being able to deal with our reality and dysregulation of our own emotions. And that could be tremendously healed. So if I could do one magic thing, it would be every 8th grader on Earth takes 2 semesters of skills that are designed to help them cope and be the best person they can be.
Yeah, I love it. I've been talking about using the phrase mental hygiene because I think,
absolutely.
We got on board with the physical hygiene, but now we need to.
No, there's so many beautiful things they can get into.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your wishes. What's your third wish?
My third wish, I'm going to be tacky and just say, I wish I had enough money, and I don't know what that would be, where I could put forth a vision of being a blessing in this world without having the daily fight to survive. At the moment, on Maslow's hierarchy, I am trapped in the basic, I don't know if I'm going to have shelter tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to have food tomorrow. I don't know if my van's going to run tomorrow. The basics that I need to lie. I literally, there's a lot of days I have 0 money. I have 0 gas. I'm completely trapped, and I want to change the world.
Right.
So it sounds selfish, but it wouldn't be. I would like to be able to get up in the morning and think, you know what? We need to put in a water system in Zimbabwe, in this little village where people are dying off because of iron contamination. And to everything, even if you're going to crowdsource, okay, we're going to create some sort of funding program where we're going to redo their water system. The problem is it takes money just to kickstart the Kickstarter.
Correct.
So
yeah.
when you're focused on survival, you can't be all the things that the universe might be calling you to do. So I wouldn't even so much say, "Oh, I want to be a millionaire," as I want to say, I'd like to have 10 grand in my bank account every month. That's probably conservative for what a lot of people guess for. I just don't want to have to worry about those things.
Right.
As far as a big chunk of money, I don't even care if I have a house. It's not important to me. I'd like to have an acre somewhere with solar and a independent water source and a big studio in the middle that's my home base, and some sort of a motorhome contraption where I get to wander. That's the bohemian part that I mentioned earlier. I want to live a life that's joyful and absorbing not just my little corner of the earth, but to continue to experience all over. And it would take a little money to do that. So that would be my third wish. And I'm not even going to be particularly selfish.
Yeah, it doesn't sound selfish to me, any of it. But... Well, thank you. Let's do a little rapid fire questions, shall we, and wrap it up?
Sounds good.
Smooth or crunchy peanut butter?
Crunchy.
Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Oh, my rapid fire questions just left me. All right. How about this one? It's just fun. It's not rapid fire, but if you were a hat, what kind of hat would you be?
Raspberry beret.
Nice. I often ask why, but that kind of needs no explanation. I think it's a perfect fit. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Anyway, this was a treat. I just enjoy your company so much. And I know I kind of dominated the conversation. When we do this again, and I sure hope we do, we'll create something where it's more of a give and take.
No, I'm really trying my best to shut up and let you talk is the thing, because otherwise I will dominate the conversation. But yes, indeed, we will have future conversations.
There's topics where you and I track, the poetry, the
magic, healing, so many topics we could talk about for hours.
Where I want to, rather than me tell a story, I really want the two of us to bounce off each other's accumulated wisdom.
I do too. I really want to talk about education, ideas because I have a degree in education. Like, I want to put something together and just stick it in the system, because if we don't, who's going to,
right,
or try at least
absolutely
try. So thank you again. I'm going to hit the unrecord button. That's what I call it these days.
That wraps up my interview with Kelly Sophia Grace. I hope you found her story inspiring, and I encourage you to take more authentic action in your own life today. Don't wait for a crisis to begin building the life you dream of. I also encourage you to check out Kelly's mystical artwork. You can find her on Facebook as herself, or you can find her enchantment tools for mystics with a quick search for Tools for Mystics. I know she would love to hear from you. I appreciate your attention today, and I welcome your questions, comments, and suggestions. You can find me on Facebook as well, or you can contact me through most other social media platforms. Also, you can purchase my books and music on Amazon, my t-shirts on Teespring, and you can find my courses, artwork, and information about my current projects at www.angellily.com. And you can also learn more about the Authentic Action School online at www.authenticactionschool.com. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to play every day and drive forward.